play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scoverin, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these ADs are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on Sport.
Welcome in, and it is Game Time Decisions right here on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh with you on this Monday night. Plenty for us to go through here in these next 2 hours. We will look back at the weekend that was, which included Saturday's in-game live double-up with myself and Coach James Young following a huge game in the college world at Madison Square Garden. We saw the Duke Blue Devils annihilate Illinois, and then we saw in the NBA the LA Lakers win and ultimately dominate the Denver Nuggets on the road. A lot of takeaways to have, I think, from both of those basketball games, and we will explore those tonight. We'll talk to Coach James Young here on Game Time Decisions in just a little bit. We'll check in with Tom Vecchio as well for those looking to ride the momentum off of the Four Nations tournament and still get involved with a light 2-game hockey board. We have the NBA. We have the college game tonight. Before we talk about everything that we saw this weekend, some of the takeaways, the staple, moments that we did see, let's get into tonight's slate. Let's figure out where some juice is. And we have 2 games featuring ranked action. We were initially looking like we may have a third, but Kansas no longer ranked as the Jayhawks have continued to struggle now in Big 12 play. A 6.5-point favorite at Colorado, a team they laid 17.5 against just a few games ago. Now, of course, there is a huge difference in home court advantage, and we're seeing that on display some, but it looks like CU have covered 5 consecutive games. The Buffs, heading into this matchup, are getting more respect in the market. That is not the biggest game, though, in the Big 12. That would be Houston and Texas. Number 10, Texas Tech, and number 4, the Houston Cougars. And if you've been listening to me, you know that I have grown more and more impressed and in on Houston. A lot of that is their play, but a lot of that is the price as well. We have seen major movement for both Auburn and Duke throughout this season, and rightfully so. Those are the 2 best teams in college basketball. When you look at, I think, resumes, advanced metrics, all of these things suggest they deserve that type of movement. Houston, though, lacks behind still when it comes to movement. Preseason 9-1. I bet them at 10-1. They are now on FanDuel plus 750. Over on DraftKings 8-1. It feels that even in the best Houston results, they cannot match what people are seeing from Auburn and Duke. Tonight, I think, would be the game changer. If you like the Cougars in this game, if you like the Cougars' big picture, I think you're going to want to probably get involved before tonight's game against Texas Tech. This win for Houston would see them at 24-4 on the season, 16-1 in Big 12 play, and it would almost assuredly clinch the Big 12 regular season championship for Houston. It would be getting the win back of their only loss in conference, which came against Texas Tech in overtime, but Houston was home for that game. I expect a great effort from the Cougars defensively heading into this one. This total is up 4 points from the prior meeting that we saw Texas Tech win. That game wasn't over even before overtime. Saw 19 additional points get tacked on. I think it's a good spot for Houston tonight. But my favorite bet on the college board comes to us from number 15, Michigan, taking the trip to Nebraska as just a 1.5-point favorite. And I'm on the over of this game at 151.5. I see some 152.5s starting to appear out there. And I agree with the movement. I think one of these teams, if not both of these teams, can touch 80 tonight. Specifically Nebraska, I feel good about. They had a very similar spot 10, 11 days ago against Maryland at home. Similar spread, similar total. They were not able to cash in. Offensively, they just were a little slow to get things rolling in the opening half of that. They lose that game 83-75 as the final score. And tonight could look similar, but perhaps reverse for Nebraska. This is their best chance to take out one of these top teams at home, but they will be getting a focused Wolverine group who just lost to Michigan State, their rival, in their own building, snapping a 6-game win streak in Big Ten play for Michigan in a game where the Michigan Wolverines' second half couldn't get it going. Over the course of the game, scored only 62 points with 5 of 21 shooting from beyond the arc. I think both offenses tonight could touch 80. I feel very good that at least one of them will, and that then should be enough to get us over the listed total. Also, we are going to bet Mississippi Valley State, the Delta Devils, plus 17.5. The worst team in college basketball, no close second, and tonight is the absolute best example of that, as they are playing a 4-23 basketball team in Prairie View A&M. And they are a 17.5-point road underdog. It is absolutely incredible. But I asked about their game with our guy, Donnie Rightside, who's more and more, you can tell, back in the college basketball groove this weekend. He's like, yeah, I would probably just steer clear if you could. And I did. And they lost that game by 42, I think. They get destroyed because 41. Tonight, it's like, maybe. And the people are tweeting at me like, hey, do we give the Delta Devils a chance? I can only say no so many times. I think they'll stream the game on YouTube tonight. I hope so. We're looking to be in the mix. Let's talk some NBA. Again, we'll zoom out some big picture items for you. But with the NFL by the wayside, football as a whole, post-All-Star break, I want to bet more NBA sides. And so far, so good. And I hope that can continue tonight. Played at Washington, and I tweeted these out earlier today. The Wizards plus 3.5 tonight against the Brooklyn Nets. Number moving a little bit in my direction, which is good to see. I think the Wizards are a basketball team that if you get the appropriate injury report, they are a play on, because the Washington Wizards had a contenders-esque deadline. It still is a bit stunning. Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart should not be on this basketball team, yet they are. And they're both looking like they will be playing tonight. This was a Wizards team that was supposed to make a ton of moves at the deadline. And yet here we are still now looking at this roster and thinking, it's kind of competitive. And there's some good aspects of this basketball team here. And we saw when Smart and Middleton were available at home, the Wizards covered in a loss to the Milwaukee Bucks. I think tonight they win this game outright against the Brooklyn Nets. It's a good spot with a Nets team that's going to be missing D'Angelo Russell and is coming off of a great kind of emotional victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. Nick Claxton getting it done at the buzzer. 11.5-point road dog against Philly. I think we buy low on Washington. And I'm going to buy once again on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Look, man, OKC knows how to route and roll, but at 12.5, I'm going to take Minnesota, who I took last night, catching 8.5. And Minnesota, admittedly, didn't even play a great basketball game. They had a great 4-minute stretch that saw them really roll in the second quarter. It was the only quarter of basketball that they won, but they did a nice job staying inside the number. I think tonight they're actually a little more dangerous to win this basketball game outright against OKC. It's tough to keep running up against the same team. Anthony Edwards is looking for his first efficient shooting game since the All-Star break. You could argue he's looking for his first efficient shooting game in some time, shooting below 40% from the field in the month of February. And then lastly, our bounce-back spot, player prop-wise, LaMelo Ball over the 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists tonight as Charlotte goes up against the Sacramento Kings. We'll look back at the weekend with you here on Game Time Decisions next.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We look back towards this weekend and what we saw, what we took away, and what made a difference in the market. And we saw the Duke Blue Devils annihilate Illinois. And it dropped the Illini's price to win a national championship sum. That number is down to 100-1. It also helped Duke in some areas close the gap with Auburn, who was the number one team still in college basketball. However, that Duke result, 110-67, A game I was wrong about a few times. Now, I thought that Duke could win. I wouldn't have been surprised if Duke won by margin going into the game. I thought it would be an under. Illinois scored 67. That means that Duke could have scored 90, and I would have been able to win an under 157.5. I lost that bet by 20. Duke's 110 points moved their numbers a ton. To a degree that I now, as someone who bet them to win the national championship preseason, am kind of uncomfortable with, which is crazy to say. We talk Ken Palm, you hear it talked about all the time. It's not a Bible, but it's a great resource. And one of the things, though, that I've always appreciated about Ken Palm was it having some degree backing up a take that I've had for a long time before I ever knew the site existed, which is who is the best team I've ever seen in my time watching college basketball, which is the platoon squad from Kentucky, a group that actually lost in the Final Four to Wisconsin, who then went on to lose a national championship to Duke that year. They, on KenPom, have the highest single-season net rating since 2002. And it is a number that some teams have been able to get around but never through. Well, Duke, having now beat Illinois, still grading out as a top 25 team, is not just number one this season. They have the highest net rating in the history of KenPom, 24 seasons worth, and it's kind of not close. Their net rating is a 38.13. The gap is massive. It may not sound like it, but it is. And I'm now fascinated by this Duke team. Is it possible that even I, somebody who bet them to win a national championship despite being the favorite preseason, underrated this group? Or, even though this stuff is opponent adjusted, are they now even a little bit overrated because Illinois, whose numbers are built up from some stuff that they did early in the season, is collapsing in front of our eyes? Each result worse to the last. At home, they lose by 14 to Michigan State. They go to Wisconsin, lose by 21, and then, of course, a 43-point rout at the Garden from the Duke Blue Devils. And the thing is, with Duke, what's the test? What's the answer? Their next game against is Miami. Miami plays a SWAC-level defense. Florida State at home, Wake Forest at home, not really. North Carolina has been surging. They are a rival. That is the test. And again, the test is still relative. Duke is going to be favored by what at UNC? Home against that team, they laid 12.5. Duke is gaining. UNC is playing better. But against Cuse, NC State, UVA, North Carolina tonight plays Florida State. I think that'll be interesting to see if UNC can stay on a run, but you still expect it to be around double digits. So this Duke number may only grow. And we will enter the tournament where Duke, if they win a national championship, will then have an argument as the best team in college basketball history, single season standalone. That is, again, not even something that myself was prepared for, which is fascinating. One other note from this weekend, which will go under the radar because it was not a ranked versus ranked matchup. It was unranked. But the Gonzaga Bulldogs lost at home to St. Mary's. And Gonzaga, at the moment, is a team that could, and I know some will say this is not going to happen, but if you look around, it seemingly could be left out of the tournament. The idea was Gonzaga would beat St. Mary's and don't worry. But for Gonzaga, all of a sudden, they've lost to all the best teams they've played. Both games against St. Mary's, Kentucky, UConn, UCLA, West Virginia. The big wins are Baylor, who's they just lost to Colorado. Indiana, I guess you pops from champagne that they beat Purdue. What's incredible is, though, I should sound like a maniac. I should sound like a fool. I should have producers running in and being like, hey, man, let's just clean it up? What research were you doing going into today's show to think that this is a real talking point? Gonzaga, analytically, is a top 15 team in college basketball. Yet, despite that being true, Gonzaga, 11th on KenPom, people believe could miss the bracket if they don't clean this up. But again, what's clean it up mean? Beat Santa Clara, where they already lost to, by the way, at home? Beat San Francisco to clinch the auto bye? I don't know. And again, the deal for Gonzaga is, if this plays out the way it always does in WCC play, they now just have to not get swept by St. Mary's, and they'll get the auto bid, and they'll be in, and that'll be fine. And it feels like to some degree that is reflected in a national championship price at 55-1, where they're not actually thinking that this team is going to collapse and fall back and miss this tournament. But again, the fact that this is even a talking point for a team that is top 15 analytically in college basketball is incredible. And I don't know if it says more so that Gonzaga should leave the WCC or should not leave the WCC, because it's going to get scary if they then are playing Big 12 basketball. But that, again, is for when it happens. Don't forget tonight, a lot of great basketball. As somebody who's got the Houston tickets, if they beat Texas Tech, I think tonight's a separator. I think it's 6-1 or less for them to win a national championship if they get the job done. Where I am already invested is the Michigan-Nebraska over at 151 at half. It's a quick break. We're right back here with more Game Time decisions on SportsGrid.
Slow play, drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scover when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in, and it is Game Time decisions here on this Monday night. Kevin Walsh with you. We've got Tom Vecchio going to stop by here with us in just a little bit. But let's hear from Tom. Let's hear from Joe. Let's hear about the great options that you can find over on Sports Million Pick'em.
How Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome into Sports Millions Pick'ems here on the grid. Tom, Friday just didn't go well for me. I had Scotty Barnes higher than 20.5 points out there. He was only able to put up 13 points versus the Heat. I was just blown away by how bad he looked out there on the court. Where did you go with your Sports Millions on Friday, and how did that one turn out?
It did not go well for me as well. I had Kyrie lower than 27.5 points. He passes 30 in that game. Last week started off super hot, ended a little bit cold. Let's start this week off hot, a little bit of a different format. We're going to be looking at specific games for each of us. We'll have 2 picks for each game. Let's start with the Nets taking on the Wizards. Nick Claxton, he's coming off a big weekend, both personally and professionally. He had that game winner versus the 76ers. He announced he's having a baby, so let's roll with the hot hand. Claxton higher than 12.5 points. He has at least 12 points in 7 of his last 10 games. He's been higher this mark in half of those 10 games, and it's a great matchup going up against the Wizards. They're on 26.9 points per game to opposing centers. That is dead last in the NBA, so a great spot for Claxton to continue the scoring. Then on the other side, with Jordan Poole, I'm going to take him higher than 4.5 assists. We know the Wizards aren't a great team overall, but their offense has to come from somewhere, and it's been Poole as of late. He's had at least 4 assists in 8 straight games over this mark in 6 of the 8, and when we combine these, we get a 3x multiplier. That's what we want to be focusing on. So Claxton plus Poole, one on each side, 3x multiplier. What do you got?
Yeah, great way to go with yours. I'm going to look at the matchup here between the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks. Now, we know both of these teams coming off losses yesterday. The Heat did lose that one to the Bucks. It was 120 to 113. And the Hawks coming off a really disappointing loss versus the Pistons yesterday in what was a barn burner out there on the hardwood, 146 to 143. Now, looking at the star of that game for the Hawks yesterday, it was Trae Young. Trae Young was able to put up 38 points, and he went 6 of 15 from deep. I'm looking for him to bring that momentum, especially hitting from deep here at home, onto the court today. You can take Trae Young higher than 3.5 made threes, and that's exactly where I'm going to go for the Atlanta Hawks side of my Sports Millions Pick'ems versus the Orlando Magic. In a couple games ago, he was able to go 4 of 13. He's getting that volume out there on the hardwood, and I do think he will be able to get those threes on the board, especially when you look at the Miami Heat. They're allowing the 9th most threes at 13.8 per game. When we turn to the Miami Heat and the player I'm going to circle out there, it's Bam. Bam has been so strong at being able to get those points on the board. I'm going to take him higher than 19.5 points in this matchup. He's gone higher than 19.5 in 18 games this season. And we also look at him last 4 games averaging 23 points per game. So 3 times multiplier here. Bam higher than 19.5 points, and Trae Young higher than 3.5 made threes, Tom.
We will have some NHL in full swing. They are back tomorrow. We'll be back to NBA on Wednesday, bouncing back back and forth between the 2 sports throughout the entire week.
Yeah, it's going to be a great week, you guys. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Join us back here tomorrow.
All right, great stuff there from, again, both Tom and Joe. Before we pick up the pieces from that, let's just hear a little bit more about what you can find over on Sports Million Pick'em.
Check out Sports Millions Social Casino, featuring classic slots and brand new game concepts. The Social Casino features the opportunity to win large sweepstake coins, and the games are always free to enter. Go play now at sportsmillions.com/social-casino. That's sportsmillions.com/social-casino.
And again, we've got Tom Vecchio stopping by in just a couple of moments, so make sure you don't go anywhere. I just want to quickly mention tonight, you'll notice for the game between the Sixers and the Bulls, Paul George right now 16.5, Tyrese Maxey 30.5, no Joel Embiid, and it is very possible that we've seen Joel Embiid play his final game of the season. The question I have, and one I think that we may explore as this show goes on, is it on the board? Does it make sense? Is it the right move? Maybe for both parties, if Joel Embiid has played his final game for the Philadelphia 76ers. Just something to keep in mind, and something, again, we'll discuss in just a little bit right here on Game Time Decisions.
play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scoverin, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20 and 34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, back with it right here, and it is Game Time Decisions. We've talked some NBA, we've talked some college basketball. Why not, though, talk about everybody's favorite sport for a moment in time? Hockey. Tom Vecchio here to join us on SportsGrid. Tom, still reeling from the loss this past Thursday?
Yeah, I'm certainly not happy about Team USA losing. Never want to see that happen. The way the game played out, there were certainly a ton of chances, especially in overtime. You know, maybe Austin Matthews can actually show up in a meaningful game for once. Hopefully he gets this out of his system. He's done it for X amount of years for the Maple Leafs, not being able to get past the first round except one time. Hopefully he gets that out of his system, and he's ready to go for next year for the gold medal when we'll need him most. So congrats to Canada. I wanted Team USA to win, but gold medal's up next.
I do wonder if Oiler fans, to some degree, are regretting the whole thing. 2 games since, on aggregate, I think it is a 13-6 deficit they're at right now. I'm just curious, Tom, were there any takeaways for you from the first weekend of hockey back from the Four Nations tournament?
So you can make a case, whatever you want to make the case for, like you will find that narrative. For example, the Red Wings were super hot prior to the break, and they won, 7 of their last 8. They come out of the break a little bit slow. They blow a 3-1 lead against the Wild. They blow a lead yesterday versus the Ducks. They end up coming away with the win yesterday. For example, the Flyers, who beat the Oilers win those games, the Flyers got 5 players back into their lineup on Saturday, right? So, and those players were just injured. So getting those type of reinforcements will bolster a team. And they were, plus 170 on the money line at home. They're getting all these reinforcements back. Columbus got 5 players back. So whatever you want to make for the break, either teams that were super hot, they didn't want the break, and now they've kind of cooled off. Teams got so much healthier compared to where they were 2 weeks ago. They said some players would start off slow, like Nathan McKinnon, who obviously played a big role for Canada. In his first game back against the Preds on Saturday, he had 8 shots on goal, which is a ton. So, he hasn't missed a step. The Avs have lost games, but McKinnon himself hasn't lost a step. So, if you want to find a narrative for a player or a team, you can sort through anything just to find what you want to take away from it. It's kind of bad, honestly.
That's interesting. I mean, again, maybe which I'm open to. He had 8 shots and didn't score. That seems not great for one of the best.
Well, I mean, goals are variable, but if you're banking on a shot prop, Like you'd always you're always putting a smaller unit on the goal anyway, just because it's sitting at plus 130 or plus 150. The implied probability is lower than his shot prop, which is normally 3.5 as it was the other day. I think it was minus 144 on the over. So you'd be putting larger on that, and you could ladder him up to 5 plus, 6 plus, whatever it might be, because historically he's also extremely great against the Predators. So the goals are going to be variable, even if it were midseason. We have seen players go routinely with multiple games in a row without a goal. So I'd almost be buying into players that were snubs, as I said on Saturday, or as I said on NHL Today on Friday, right here with Joe Madden. I said that Tage Thompson on Saturday for goal versus the Rangers at plus 165, and he comes out and knocks in a goal.
So what are you thinking tonight, Tom? There's 2 games on the board. It's Winnipeg against San Jose. The Jets are a huge favorite, above minus 500. And then a much different line when we talk about Kings Knights. That also a 5.5 total. The game essentially a pick with Vegas on the road.
Yeah, I don't mind the Kings in that matchup. I think that's fine. Specifically for that, though, I like Pavel Dorofeev on the Vegas Golden Knights. He leads the team in goals. He has the second most shots on goal. Jack Eichel for the Vegas Golden Knights, he was maybe a step slow in his first game, if you want to call it that, only 1 shot on goal. But I just like the role that Dorofeev plays for Vegas. When it comes to Winnipeg and when it comes to San Jose, like, this line is insane. I don't think there's really any reasonable way to bet Winnipeg. You can't even bet them on the puck line, minus 1.5. Earlier, I saw it was minus 170 for them to win by 2, which is crazy. You can't bet them in regulation. You can play the over. That would kind of imply them winning by multiple goals. Maybe Hellebuyck gives up 1 goal, but they can still pile up 5 goals of their own just because they are an amazing offense. So I'm on the over 5.5. It's juiced a little bit at minus 135, but there's really no efficient way to play that line in that game outside of a player prop here or there.
Yeah. Are there any numbers, Tom, in the futures market that you're starting to look for? One thing that is kind of stunning to me is an Edmonton Oiler is favored to win MVP, and it is not Connor McDavid.
Yeah. So Draisaitl got off to an amazing start. Obviously, McDavid missed a little bit of time, but the goals for Draisaitl are immense. He's probably going to win the Rocket Richard, which is most goals in the league. He's at 42. The next player, I think there's 2 players tied behind him, or it's Nylander from the Maple Leafs at 33. So he has a good lead on that. He could also win the Art Ross, which is the most points in the league. He's neck and neck with Nathan MacKinnon. So winning like 2 of the 3 major offensive offensive categories will put him in place to win that MVP, which deservingly so. He should be one of the finalists basically year in and year out. So he's going to come down to McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, and Draisaitl. And maybe there's one other player that could be in the mix. I know Connor Hellebuyck's up there this year for the Hart, and be the first time that a goalie has won the Hart since Carey Price won it over a decade ago. That's how good of a season Hellebuyck is having in net for Winnipeg.
Yeah, are there any Stanley Cup, conference, playoffs? Are there any of those numbers that have started to stand out to you?
So I already have a Jets future at 20-1. They've dropped a little bit at 12-1. I understand the historic issues they've had in the playoffs. So I'm looking, as I discussed this morning with Ben and Donnie, of adding 1 or 2 more into my portfolio just to have a few more in the Stanley Cup. I don't mind the Avs, a team that has historically made a lot of moves at the deadline, and the same thing with the Lightning on the other side. 17-1 they are. Andre Vasilevsky, their goalie, is playing unbelievable right now, and I never trust the Maple Leafs in the playoffs, and there's a chance that Tampa could have home ice in the first round. Granted, if that does work out, they'd probably be playing Florida, so it's like by no means an easy matchup at all. But at 17-1, Tampa is a pretty good ticket to have, and that's what I'll probably be adding next.
All right, so there could still be some value there. What do you think about the Rangers at 35-1? Supposed to be a perennial contender, but relatively speaking, that's quite the long shot when you line it up against where some of these other numbers are.
Yeah, it's just it's been a bad season for them. There's really no other way to put it. I actually have a ticket on them to miss the playoffs just because I want to at least hedge my happiness in some capacity as a fan that if they miss the playoffs, I'll win a little bit of money. And maybe that will urge them to make massive changes in the offseason rather than some minor changes. If they continue to tank more, they'll get a higher and higher draft pick, and hopefully they can move their way up into the lottery and grab James Higgins or Michael Misha, one of the 2 prospects for this year's top draft. So it's not a good bet to make. Don't bet on the Rangers. If you want to take a longer shot in the East, it would probably be the Devils actually at 13-1. I know the Canes are sitting up there at 7.5-1, but there's some reports out there that Mikko Rantanen, who they just acquired from the Colorado Avalanche, an absolutely phenomenal winger who won the Stanley Cup, they may actually be looking to flip him again because Rantanen may not sign a long-term extension because he's a UFA after the season. So that would be a disaster for the Canes and only a plus for everyone else in the East.
A lot of interesting thing to. So how close are we from that deadline?
12
the
days.
NHL. Is that supposed to be one of your bigger moves? Is there another one or two names that we need to be keeping an eye on?
Well, Rantanen being traded from Colorado to the Canes was a massive move. I mean, he over the last 5 years, he is fourth in the league for the most total points. Right? Yeah. It's McDavid, it's Draisaitl, it's McKinnon, and him. He is an absolute stud. They traded him, and now there's concerns that they're not going to be able to re-sign him. And now they're going to say that there's reports out that they're going to trade him away to at least get something back, because last year they went all in and got Jake Gensel from Pittsburgh, and then they weren't able to re-sign him in the offseason. They lost him to Tampa. So something that the Canes are doing, they can acquire players, but then they can't extend ones that they've then acquired long-term. So if they now have to trade away this all-star player, that's going to take a hit to their lineup. Meanwhile, they trade away Marty Necas to Colorado, and now he's gone. So, something's going on with the Canes front office, and it would only mean value for a team like the Devils.
All right, so all stuff then that we need to keep some tracks of there. And trying to keep the hockey momentum rolling. I mean, look, people look at me like I'm down on the sport, negative on the sport. We bring in Tom, we do a whole 2-game slate, Tom. I mean, fewer kinder to the sport than me, I'd argue.
I mean, I can come back tomorrow. We got a full slate tomorrow. We can go through anything we want.
Wow. Tommy Tuesdays all of a sudden. We'll have to look into it. Excellent stuff as always, Tom. We do appreciate you stopping by here. We'll be right back with you on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we're back with you right here, and it is Game Time Decisions live with you on this Monday night. Great stuff from Tom Vecchio. Stopping by, talking a little bit about the NHL. And, this weekend, again, it all depends. Eye of the beholder. Perhaps some of you were still captivated, grabbed by the hockey, betting some of the various games out there. But I know a lot of people were locked in for a game Saturday night in the NBA between the Lakers and the Nuggets. And this was the matchup when the Los Angeles Lakers made the move to acquire Luka Doncic that had a lot of people, and please do not pretend that this didn't happen, say that the Lakers were a future team, meaning down the road, not a this year team, not a contender, specifically because if they dare step on the same court as Nikola Jokic, they were going to get steamrolled, punched, annihilated, and left for dead. Well, it didn't work out that way, did it? The Lakers win this game 123-100. And there were a few things that I think we should address coming off of this game. And maybe I'll do them from least important to most important. I just want to say, because I said this on Saturday night, and I don't know if there's going to be enough apologies out there from people, but what we heard around J.J. Redick becoming the Lakers head coach was absolutely embarrassing, and many of you should be ashamed of your analysis and opinions around that move. J.J. Redick, with a near two-decade career in the NBA, in the spotlight since his early days at Duke, somehow that career, that basketball career, was put on the back burner for a podcast. People were calling him a podcaster exclusively and meaning it, acting like his only credentials were working on a podcast with LeBron. And before you fools go, well, who was trying to interview him before the pod? A bunch of teams. Toronto and Charlotte, to be specific. And now it is clear as day the Lakers have a very good head coach. I don't think anybody out there would be foolish enough to suggest there are 10 better in the sport, and it's year number one. So you really should apologize for that tomfoolery. And a lot of it was wrapped in hate for LeBron. If you want, you could keep the same energy and just give LeBron a ton of credit for bringing in a great head coach. You won't. You won't. But that credit is less important than the credit that LeBron will eventually demand when at the age of 40, year 22, he ends up first team All-NBA. You know, I've seen some people, because, look, really the GOAT debate isn't relevant to this season. It also isn't much of a debate anymore if you're being honest with yourself. But they cling on. Kind of stacking statistics. What does it really matter? LeBron is going to be first team All-NBA this season. First team. Being All-NBA, year 20 or later, preposterous. Being All-NBA, age 40 or later, preposterous. First team. There are three locks: Tatum, SGA, Jokic. If Giannis meets the game requirements, which is why he has the minutes limit working right now and why he's not sitting out these games, Giannis probably gets in. And nobody is more worthy for that fifth spot than LeBron James. I don't know. We might hear some cat love. I don't know if people are going to get wild and do Domantas Sabonis. Maybe they give it to a Cav because of the record, though no Cav is having a season as good as LeBron James. Some irony there. Year 4, you should be year 40. Year 22, age 40. First team All-NBA. Again, this stuff isn't talked about enough somehow. Despite being the face of the league, the best player, the most popular, the most popular. But I get texts when it's like, hey, you know what LeBron's shooting with 0.6 seconds left in games? Okay. Living a sad existence, I'll be honest with you. Certainly around the league. But here's the most important thing. The most absolute important thing and the biggest takeaway from the Lakers' victory is, for the first time, we saw the Lakers look like they actually traded for one of the 5 best players in the sport. I was very annoyed on Thursday. We talked about this with Dave Sharapan at the time. Some were victory lapping. Hey, I did tell you, it's not about this season. It's about the future. And be excited about it. They acquired a 25-year-old perennial MVP candidate. And the clear and obvious pushback was, hey, maybe let the MVP candidate look anywhere near that, and then we can judge. Or then you can run around the block telling everybody, I told you it wasn't now. Well, it might just be now, huh? Perhaps we were a little foolish. to discount a guy who last year won Western Conference Finals MVP, leading the Mavericks to an NBA Finals appearance. Luka Doncic, 31 minutes, 32 points, 10 boards, 7 assists, a block, and 4 steals. 4 made threes, 16 first-quarter points. Had it from the word go, had it till the very end. Luka Doncic was the best player on the court. Isn't that nice to say? Lakers fans been waiting on that one, huh? LeBron fans have sneaky been waiting on that one. Lakers and Nuggets, best player on the court. Not LeBron. Not Jokic. Luka Doncic. Unless your take is the only contender in the West is Oklahoma City, which I would push back on, but is an understandable take, the Lakers are very obviously a contender. Tier 1 is OKC. Tier 2 is Lakers Nuggets. And what's interesting, because Denver does have the best player in the world, I still believe in Nikola Jokic. That and playing some better basketball both sides of the court certainly would suggest they are a contender. But Jokic throwing out, well, who have we beat, on this 9-game streak? Valid opinion. At Philly, laying double digits, win by 3. At Charlotte, laying double digits, win by 3. Home against New Orleans twice. Home against Orlando. At Phoenix. Home against Portland twice. Home against Charlotte. Yeah, fair point. 5-point favorites tonight at Indiana. Consider the Pacers. They are on the second leg of the back-to-back. At Detroit. At Boston. At Milwaukee. All right. Interesting little run. And then in 2 weeks' time, they have a double up with OKC on the road. We'll be watching. We'll be watching. Let's reset the deck next year on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, back at the right here, and it is Game Time Decisions. Tonight on the NBA board, a couple of spots for me, but we can talk through the slate tonight. Ooh, missed out on some CLV. Earlier today, I did think an under in Pistons-Clippers at 223.5 was not a bad move. That number has come down to 220. But who's out? Is everybody out tonight? I feel like the Clippers were favorites. And then Kawhi missed the game. Did Kawhi move this game 6 points? Now, come on. You can't be serious. Maybe they thought Powell and Kawhi would play, and it's a combination there. I wouldn't have expected that. Detroit's flipped the favorites. Obviously, a lot of movement as it relates to that game. I was thinking under. The game was completely changed, though, so much, so drastically. I wouldn't touch it in any capacity whatsoever. That Pacers number has dropped a little bit. That's down to 3.5 now as they go into battle against the Nuggets, which is interesting there. Perhaps there were some concerns on who the Pacers could be without in this game. Look, the Pacers have been playing good basketball, and I think they are a fine flyer if you'd like one in the Eastern Conference. They were randomly 70-1 at one point. That's back down to 43-1. Almost looked like a typo type of price. It was there very, very briefly. Probably not even tracked in our database, but it was because we were sitting here live on air. I think the Pacers tonight will kind of put that Denver theory to the test of were they beating up on some softer teams in vulnerable spots. And the funny thing is the Pacers are in a vulnerable spot, having played last night against the Clippers. Fascinated to see what Jokic does off of scoring-wise, easily his worst game of the season. I mean, not even close. What would be the other suggestion? He had a game where he scored 10 against Dallas, but he was 4 of 7 from the field and only played 29 minutes. 35 minutes, 2 of 7 from the field against the Lakers for 12 points. I think that's got to be the worst of the season. Sixers, Bulls, again, I said we'd get there. We will get there. That number, though, is climbing. I don't know. Sixers are the sharp side every night. They never win. They never cover. So we'll see if that changes against the Bulls. I took the Wizards getting 3.5. I do like Washington with Middleton and Smart in their lineup, and I don't mind fading Brooklyn. Road favorites feels like a bridge too far. Emotional victory against the Sixers at the buzzer for Nick Claxton. I'll fade that. Hawks flip to favorites against Miami. This is a spot where I want nothing to do with it. Miami continues to be one of the most frustrating teams for me on a nightly basis in the NBA. Just cannot deal with, have a win total. It's likely done, but the losses just all compound and stupid. And they scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. They stink in the fourth quarter. Spoelstra, for me, not having a good season. It's not all him, but it's not been a good season, I think, and it's kind of been overlooked when you look at their struggles. I am on Minnesota, caught 12.5 in this game. There was some questions around who could be back. Randall, Gobert, not back, not worried. I think Minnesota, they're playing, it's like we're in the playoffs. They're playing OKC every night. I think Minnesota's playing some better ball. We haven't seen an efficient night out of Ant. If we get one here, I think the Timberwolves actually have a slight chance to pull off an upset. Portland, the best bad team in the history of basketball, they just beat Charlotte by 53. They're now a 7.5-point road favorite against Utah. Some absences, though, really shooting that number up. Larry Markkinen, Walker Kessler, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins. The starting five out for Utah. That's how you tank. Danny Ainge once again showing that that's how it is done. My goodness. I was interested in some Donovan Clingan props. Those all look way too expensive for someone whose minutes are fluctuating too much for my liking. Charlotte catching 11.5 at Sacramento is tempting. You look at they played the Lakers first game off the break. They were into it. They were excited to get a win. Awesome. Second leg of a back-to-back against Denver. No LaMelo. They kind of hung for a bit. It is what it is. It happens, right? So then they show up against Portland. Well, what's the excitement? What's the energy? We beat the Lakers. We kind of hung with Denver. We'll be fine. Whoa, we're down how much? And it just kept getting worse. And a lot of that was LaMelo Ball struggles. His worst game in a long time this season. 1 of 10 from the floor, 0 of 4 from 3, 5, 4, and 2. I think that looks well different tonight in this matchup against against the Sacramento Kings. Took him over 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists. College basketball board tonight. Very excited to watch Houston and Texas Tech, but I'm betting on Nebraska. Michigan over 152.5. That's where the card stacks up now. Let's peel back. Let's ask some questions to our guy, Coach James Young, including some ones about Joel Embiid. All next for you right here on SportsGrid. It's Game Time Decisions.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are. Ratings are through the roof. Profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we're right into it here now. It is Game Time Decisions, and I'm very excited. Oh, my goodness. I love this place, man. I didn't even realize mid-show they tried to sentel me, which is funny because it was around Joel Embiid. And I'm just going to post something around Embiid, and then we're going to bring our guy, Coach James Young, in. Joel Embiid has likely played his final game for the Sixers. And that, for me, somewhat softens the blow of them benching him in the fourth quarter, because perhaps that was just a moment where everybody said, look, we got to stop this. This isn't working. And that is true. That is real. This season is done. There's no hot take. There's no one is going to bang the table saying Embiid should go out there and play the rest of the year. He's not right. He's not himself. And even if when he's out there, they're losing. So we know that. The question I have is will the Sixers trade Embiid this offseason? And if so, what is the price look like around this league? The most obvious spot, and there are a few others that I could throw your way, but we don't need to spend too much time with this theory, but it is Oklahoma City if they fall short of their intended goal, which I would say at minimum is making a finals, who could very likely for Hartenstein, Caruso, and all the picks you've ever seen get Joel Embiid on their roster. Would the Sixers be willing to make a move like that? Some will say OKC shouldn't. You're saying that now. See if they fall short of your expectations. Okay? Cleveland, Boston, there's teams. When you fall short, sometimes a big move comes. Maybe not for OKC, but last year they were the 1 seed and were eliminated in round 2. If that happened again, are the Sixers willing to have those conversations? And on that note, we bring in Coach James Young. JY, great to have you here on a Monday night. I want to ask you about the Philadelphia 76ers and, again, the likelihood that Joel Embiid is probably going to be shut down for the remainder of this season.
What took so long? I mean, let's be honest. Joel Embiid, I mean, he was one leg in the playoffs last year versus the Knicks. And what happens? He goes and plays for Team USA. Now, we're going to get on Golden State for not letting Andrew Wiggins play for Team Canada. Andrew Wiggins came back, right, K-Dub? In shape. You know, Kawhi, that's another story. But they basically did the same thing. So Joel Embiid, who could have sat there and said, you know what? My knee's not right. I got to get it fixed. Remember, folks, had problems with his knees rookie year, had problems with his knees at Kansas. Knee problems as bigs. We know this, K-Dub. They don't just go away. They're always there. I still got knee problems. I'm 48. So I'm not shocked by this. What I'm going to be shocked at is if Philadelphia says, we're going to get all these opinions and we're going to play through it. Why? Why?
Yeah.
The process is done. It's done. It's over. Now you got to think about if you're Philadelphia, and you know this, K-Dub, you know, with the teams in Philly, there is no worse city to be irrelevant than Philadelphia. The only team they care about thick and thin are the Eagles. Flyers, Phillies, Sixers, they can all kick rocks when they stink. Go try to go to a Sixers game tonight, folks. You still got time. Tip-off's in 30 minutes. Only cost you $2 to get in. $4.95 with fees.
Yeah, it's not great. What I think is sad to see is he is being turned on a little bit by...
A little bit?
Yeah, I know. He was so good for them. I don't know. I'll say this. If this ends like this with Embiid, they owe Ben Simmons an apology. And we don't have to get into it beyond that. Let me ask you about a name I threw out there, Isaiah Hartenstein. He and the Thunder tonight, as usual, big favorites at home, playing Minnesota again. Yesterday they played at Minnesota. It was an OKC win. It was a Minnesota cover. What are you looking for in this matchup tonight, Coach?
I'm looking for a double-double. Real quick, one of my plays for college was UNC on the money line. They're up 9-6, so big game for them if they have any chance of making a run. Just wanted to throw it out there real quick for the audience. But I like Isaiah Hartenstein getting a double-double tonight at plus 165. It may have moved a little bit over the course of the day. When you look at Hartenstein, number one, the rebounds Kevin's got to be there. Why? It's going against Gobert, right? Gobert doesn't leave the dunk spot, right? Got to keep him off the boards. So you figure Isaiah Hartenstein should be able to get there in the rebounds. The points where it gets tricky. He's averaging 11.1 points per game, double digits on only 2 of the last 5 games. But he is someone, last game he had a double-double. Guess who it was? Yeah. Minnesota, 10-12. Game before that he missed it, 12-9. Isaiah Hartenstein tonight, double-double plus money.
All right, so a little double-double action there for Coach on the card. We'll go back into that 7 o'clock window. JY, how do you feel about Detroit matching up with the Clippers?
You know, Detroit has been a really great story. When we've talked about it, I think, off air, the job that J.B. Bickerstaff has done with this team. You have both teams on the second leg of a back-to-back, but it's in Detroit. Detroit is 4-0 against spread, I do believe. Clippers have won 10 straight matchups in this series. I'm going to go ahead and take Detroit Pistons on the money line tonight.
All right, so a little love for the Pistons on the money line. And then how do you see Denver bouncing back from that loss against the Lakers?
They better bounce back because they look terrible. They looked awful. And to me, you know, I don't even know what it is, but Nikola Jokic points over, it's got to be insane. I don't know if unless it's astronomically high. There's no way, Kevin, he's getting 7 shots. Nikola Jokic, you know what? Go Nikola Jokic points over the first quarter. He's getting probably 7 shots in the first quarter tonight versus Indiana. But as far as the game, they were looking good until that last game. I think they bounced back. Give me the Nuggets minus the points on the road. But on the flip side, Aaron Naismith over 8.5 points. Reason being, if you look at the matchups, right, and K-Dub knows where I'm going with this, Brown probably goes to Halliburton. That means at times it's going to be Murray on Naismith. Murray's not a strong defender. They give up a ton of points to the guards. Give me Aaron Naismith over 8.5 points tonight.
What are you looking for from Jokic specifically, though? Like that aggressiveness, do you think that perhaps then the assist could struggle, or it's just like from the word go? I don't know. Is that in Jokic's nature, JY, to kind of command the basketball like that so early on?
It's, to me, if you come off a seven shot performance and you're the reigning MVP, and I'm the coach and I'm Michael Malone, I never adjusted, which is Kevin and I were on air, and I was stunned that they just didn't put the Joker at the high post. They put him in the low post and let him get double and triple team, take away sight line, put him at the elbow, let him cook. At the end of the day, he also is going against someone in Miles Turner who he tends to beat up a little bit. I think you go at him from the word go.
Question for you on this one, and the coach is going to be here with us for a little bit. Do you think to some degree for Denver, as much as that game was frustrating, they go, all right, at least now if we do match up with that team, we have a really good idea of how they want to guard us?
Yeah, because there's no other way to could guard. I mean, yeah, you're going to – how many minutes are you going to give Alex Lynn and Jackson Hayes? But they may have broke the code. Small, fight for position, double, triple, take away sight lines.
All right, we're going to hit a quick break here. We're back with more Coach James Young. We'll talk rest of the NBA slate and some college hoop next.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Folks, I almost forgot. I mean, do we have the game streaming? Everybody's favorite, Mississippi Valley State, the Delta Devils. The Delta Devils. Oh, they're streaming it. So we're going to get in the mix.
Is Jerry Rice playing tonight?
Come on, get excited, Coach. We love betting in the SWAC. JY, let's talk some college basketball. We can go big picture in a minute, but let's start with tonight's card. Ranked action in the Big Ten. It's Nebraska and Michigan. Do you like anything in this one tonight?
Yeah, I heard you go over. I'm going to just go with Michigan on the money line, or you do plus 1.5. Minus 1.5 looks like it flipped. To me, when you look at this, Kevin, Nebraska's been good, right? So you got to, as a coach, you got to look at like teams that are similar. I found one, Maryland. They blew them out twice. Why Maryland? Queen and Reese. You go to the other side, Michigan, Wolf and Golden. Nebraska struggles with big teams. I know it said plus 1.5, maybe it's minus 1.5, whatever it is. Money line, Michigan on the road tonight. I will say, though, when you look at a team like Indiana, who is squarely on the bubble after those 2 wins, even though I don't think they should be in the tournament, they need Nebraska to lose tonight. Like, they're tied in the division. If you get Michigan, who's going to finish, second in the Big Ten this late in the season, that's a resume booster. So if you're Indiana, you're actually rooting for Michigan, which is weird to say. But I do like Michigan plus the 1.5 on the money line tonight.
All right, so some love there for Michigan on the road. How do you feel about Houston on the road against Texas Tech? Only team who've beaten them so far in Big 12 play.
Yeah, it was a wild game, 82-81. Houston's been really, really good since. Got to remember, I think that's one of the games that Emmanuel Sharp did not play. He's kind of working his way back from an ankle injury. Udon has been really, really good to transfer from Oklahoma, being that second player. And LJ Cryer has been on a heater as of late, 28 points over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
When you have 2 days or so to prepare for that defense, that's a problem. Texas Tech is really good. But I think Houston gets payback tonight. Houston on the money line gets a huge road win, which would help fortify their case for possibly a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I do think that tonight, if Houston is able to get the win, look, it's going to be a tough game. I think defensively they're going to need an incredible effort against Texas Tech. And if they're able to put that forth, I think you will see that title price move considerably and get a little bit closer to the Duke-Auburn tier. Because I think right now, if you look at the national championship market, Houston is closer to Florida than they are Duke and Auburn, and I don't agree with that personally. I know some do, but that is not how I see it. Late night Big 12, Kansas plays Colorado. Bill Self's group really could use one, JY.
You should use about 5. To be honest with you, after getting blown out at BYU, rebounded, didn't cover the spread, but scored 96 points in their last matchup versus Oklahoma State. And then you look at this team with Kansas. Tad Boyle, I ain't seen it win by Tad. Tad, I think, is one of the better coaches in the country. They're just having a horrendous year. I think they're last in the Big 12, if I'm not mistaken. Kansas needs to get right, Kevin, right? They need to get right. They need to start playing at the level that we thought the Kansas were, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, was number 1 in the country or top 3 in the country preseason. Everybody's talking about all these teams. Number 1. People are talking about all these teams have underachieved. And they've left Kansas out of that mix, and they've underachieved experience, transfers, young players. They got to get right. It's a big spot for him to do so. Kansas minus 6.5 on the road to Colorado.
All right, some love there for Kansas. I will say that team now 65-1 to win a national championship. There's going to be some big-ticket items that people are going to be very interested in. You have to go still, I think, much further down the board, though. If you want to give North Carolina a chance, 500-1, JY, they are going to have to probably call it what it is. They're probably going to have to beat Duke at home, final game of the regular season. What do you think they have tonight in store against Florida State?
Well, if they can't make the tournament, Kevin, if they lose tonight. So simply put, Hubert Davis's team went into the last 3, 5 straight wins over Florida State. Obviously, we know Kelvin. Oh no, what am I saying? Coach is retiring. Why am I blanking on the coach of Florida State? Retiring at the end of the year. Leonard Hamilton. There you go. Thank you. But Carolina's got to get rolling. They need one or two things to happen, Kevin. They need to win out the regular season, which includes beating Duke, or they got to go on an NC State type of run and just run through the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
I don't think either's happening, to be honest with you. But they can't get to the tournament if they don't win tonight. Take UNC on the road.
All right, so some love for UNC. I don't want to rush through it, so we'll wait. I want to ask Coach about a couple of teams. He's, talking to me about a couple of teams. I'll use this time to let people know, though, because I haven't talked about this on air just yet. This weekend, we are back in a different capacity. Betting above the rim.
Mm-hmm.
Myself, Coach James Young, and Joe Lisi. 10 a.m. to noon Eastern right here this Saturday. We will get you a fantastic breakdown. We will go big picture, but we will get you picks for that slate. There's a few huge games on in SEC action. Kentucky might catch double digits at Rupp. They're playing Auburn. Kansas is going to host Texas Tech. Tennessee, Alabama, likely the best game on the slate. And JY, because we can and we should, we'll also get to one of the biggest women's games of the season on that Saturday night, the rematch between USC and UCLA.
A great matchup. Obviously, Juju Watkins with a tremendous performance. As much as we talk about the men, we'll talk about the women because the women are fascinating. South Carolina, not the favorite right now, but if Malaysia Fawali goes into the starting lineup, they're going to win. Dawn Staley's got to put the kid in the starting lineup.
All right, we're going to talk some big picture stuff here with Coach James Young next. SportsGrid's Game Time Decisions.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Folks, these Wizards, I don't know, title hunt could be on.
Oh,
I mean, they're up early on the Nets. We'll see. We'll see. We'll lock in. We'll follow it. So, Coach, and again, I just let everybody know college basketball. Some breakdowns coming to you on Saturday. Myself, Coach, and Joe Lisi, and the national championship market. I've talked about it. I have my teams, and it's very unlikely I'll be adding. Lisi, I know, has one ticket out there. I don't even want to. We'll talk about it when it's time. But Coach, because again, understandably very matchup oriented, is going to let the bracket get settled before he starts to click on some things. One team, Coach, that you kind of were talking to me about, but I want to put it back to you. What do you make of this St. John's team that now finds themselves with the 8th best price to win a national championship, sitting at 25-1?
Intriguing. When you looked at that game yesterday versus UConn, you saw a team that the one problem that people have with St. John's is the ability to knock down threes. Rick Pitino's openly talked about them struggling, particularly Smith and Wiltshire from three. Shoot 42.1% from three. 5 guys in double figures. Their starting lineup is as good as almost as anybody in the country. Their defensively will lock you down. And remember, folks, I heard John Fanta talk about this, and someone else mentioned before. 2 teams that shot under 32.1% that have made the Final Four. Both teams coached by Rick Pitino. It's just 2 Louisville teams. So as a guy that doesn't have to live and die by the 3, but Kevin, if they could shoot it better, that's enticing. Here's what I want people to understand, and this is why I think about matchups. St. John's can get to the Final Four if they're in the East. Here's why. Duke is probably going to go to the South or the Midwest, with Auburn going to the other one. They're not going to send them up East. So then you have a situation of, can St. John's do what UConn did, I don't know if it's last year or the year before, which is go local route. Big East tournament, Providence, and then go to Newark, to the Rock, to the Prudential Center. If they do, you will have a ton of St. John's fans, which should give them a ride. Stay away from Auburn, stay away from Duke. But Kevin, let's be honest, that's everybody. It's those 2, maybe Houston, and then a bunch of other teams.
Yeah, I don't know how many people, if you have a preseason ticket, Auburn, Duke, right, that's where you are. I don't know how many people will be willing to bet on them once the bracket is set. It's very Scotty Scheffler-esque. Like, if that's your bet, that's probably your only bet. If you're looking to grab some teams, right, you want to get the timing correct. We can tell Illinois is struggling, okay. Under the radar, JY, Purdue falling apart in Big Ten play? Is this something that you've noticed? I actually have a Purdue Final Four ticket I placed a little bit ago. And for a while, I was like, wow, this is awesome. This team could win the Big Ten. Who knows? Could that push for a 1-line? Almost 4 games in a row all of a sudden. And very unencouraging because you're like, they played a lot of good teams. I don't care. If you play Michigan, Wisconsin, and Michigan State, I need a win there. Certainly not 0-3. And then to follow it up by losing at Indiana by 15, that's terrible stuff.
Yeah, you're expecting a team with Lawyer and Smith to be one of the best backcourts in the country. They've been pretty good, and obviously Kaufman Wren has put up good numbers. So you're concerned. If you're asking me for a team that's not in the top 3 or 4 that I think you should be looking at, folks, go back to the Big 12. And you guys know I love Houston. I think they are a team besides, obviously Duke and Auburn and maybe St. John's playing the best basketball. It's Iowa State. They competed so hard, Kevin, last game out without Jones and Gilbert. I'm going to tell you this, and they haven't been healthy all season. I think they were 18-1. Folks, TJ Austin-Berger's team could defend. They got guard play, and they got enough scoring that if they get healthy, that is another team, based off of matchups, that can get to a Final Four and probably wouldn't be scared a lot of all other teams as well to compete.
Yeah, Iowa State's someone who I think their numbers have been coming back a little bit due to Bama, Florida chewing up a lot of real estate, but Iowa State is certainly going to be again, unless you're keeping your net very small of who can win the title, Iowa State certainly is in that bunch. Coach, appreciate it. We'll do it a few more times here on Game Time Decisions. But don't forget, Saturday we'll be making it happen. We'll be right back here on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Back to the right here, and it is Game Time Decisions. We are live on SportsGrid on this Monday night. Delta Devils. It's a 5-point game. Not bad. Not getting killed. Awesome to see. Wizards up early. Clippers, Denver. Right now, early goings in a lot of these basketball games. One thing I just wanted to bring in quickly, though, and again, kind of just to reset the card, Wizards plus 3.5, Timberwolves plus 12.5, LaMelo over the 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists, and then that Nebraska-Michigan over the 151.5. The NFL today, we saw a couple of stories, and I think there's some connection. So firstly, we saw just the notion that Shedeur Sanders is not going to throw at the Combine. And there was kind of two reactions. There were some who were not in on Shedeur, the prospect, who took that as some vindication, right, as evidence that their perception is correct because Shedeur is unwilling to throw amongst his peers. That is foolish. Those perceptions may end up being right. I don't agree with them. I don't. But that is a very foolish thing to think. We have seen the high-end prospects have largely just stopped competing at the Combine in ways that we maybe once were accustomed to. We just saw Ashton Genty suggest he will also only be there for interviews. And that is unsurprising, right? I also think some of the Shedeur stuff, right, the connections to his father and just kind of the program that was Colorado, the interviews maybe are way more important than anything you'll see at the Combine. It's probably fair to say. So, again, that is one side of the scale that I wouldn't agree with. Now, the other thing we've seen is people say, well, he's not doing that because he has a promise from the Giants that they'll take him at 3. Well, that's interesting. Shedeur, I believe, at the bowl game had some New York Giants cleats going on. Shedeur, I think, we saw look very comfortable, walking around the Senior Bowl, seeing Brian Dable, Joe Shane. And those guys offering up a promise or kind of having a deal in place might sound ridiculous, but I'm not sure it is. A couple of years ago, at this point, 8 or 9, we saw the Philadelphia Eagles trade up the draft 2nd overall before the draft ever began. The Rams had traded up to 1 overall in that same draft. Everyone knew the Rams were going up for quarterback, and the Philly was doing the same, but who were the Eagles going to take, and weren't they running some risk that the guy they were trading up for wouldn't be there? Well, the growing idea was that the Eagles knew the Rams were going up for Goff, and then they could go up for Carson Wentz. I think it's more than possible that the Giants already have a good idea that the Tennessee Titans are not looking at Shedeur Sanders. They're looking at Cam Ward if they're looking quarterback. And maybe they know the Cleveland Browns aren't looking quarterback. Or, again, maybe not in on Shedeur Sanders. I think that is possible. I also think it is on the board that the decision is not fully in the hands of Brian Dable and Joe Shane. The Hard Knocks clips have made the rounds countless times of the reactions from ownership of what happened when they lost Saquon Barkley, and not just the talent, but the star power they lost when Saquon left. And Shedeur will bring a lot of star power. If Travis Hunter is actually going to end up playing just corner in the pros, Shedeur is the biggest star day one in this class. Quarterback position, he has the name, he has the juice. And maybe ownership isn't worried about having to fire everybody 1 year into a quarterback's tenure because they already know who would replace Brian Dable. Deion Sanders. It's on the board. I don't think it's crazy. I think Shedeur going 3rd is certainly plausible. What I think is going to be fascinating is when we start to get a bigger menu for the NFL draft props and what Shedeur Sanders over-under checks in at. Because if he does go 3rd, it means one of the what is seemingly consensus top 3 players in this class will fall. Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. So I think these are all things that will be very interesting for us to follow. It is not the only New York Giants quarterback story going around. Matthew Stafford, and that likely, certainly more timely. The Matthew Stafford report over the weekend was crazy to me. It was essentially coming from NFL Network, Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, that the Rams told Stafford, hey, listen, we'd love to have you back. So why don't you go out there, figure out how much everyone else is willing to offer you. We'll see if we can figure out a deal. That is not how this works. That is the Rams telling Stafford, we don't want to pay you what you're asking. Just flatly. And Stafford, who's likely looking for $50+ million annually at the quarterback position, will find that. Again, potentially from the Giants. I think the Vegas Raiders are on the board in a big way. Pittsburgh Steelers, Indianapolis Colts, Minnesota Vikings, who are actually the odds favorite right now for Matthew Stafford's services. But to me, I think regardless of which of those 6 you want to point the finger at, it feels very likely you are not going to see Stafford with the Rams, because if they really wanted him back and they were prepared to pay him, they would have that standoff. They wouldn't start roping in the Giants and Raiders and Steelers. That's ridiculous. That's not how these things go. And we heard and saw some reporting from Peter Schrager today of NFL Network, giving us more information around all of this. And even from Schrager, you could tell that this is a money thing and that the Rams are unwilling to give Stafford the money that he is looking for. So Stafford going is going to likely open up that, would open up that Rams job, and Aaron Rodgers should just slip the thank you to the Stafford group as quickly as possible, because I think Rodgers will quickly become the favorite to play for the Rams on a discount. In this moment, we are hearing Stafford linked to the Giants. There was a relationship within the family. His brother-in-law hired. I don't know if that will be item number one. I am sure for Stafford, if the money is even, he would then like to go to a winning situation. Again, are the Steelers willing to make that move? I'm not so sure. I do think the Raiders will be. And I feel like Las Vegas could be as appetizing to the Stafford family as New York, life-wise. And I think on-field-wise, this might sound nuts, but how much different is the Rams than the Raiders if Stafford is going to go to Vegas? He'd be excited about Pete Carroll. He'd be excited about Brady in the front office. They have the 6th overall pick. You have Brock Bowers, the best tight end in football, arguably, heading into his sophomore season. Max Crosby on the defensive side of the football. If I told you Stafford is on the Raiders, is it that much different than Stafford on the Rams? Maybe. I'm not sure it matters to Stafford, though, and it doesn't seem like the difference is a $10, $15 million discount. That seems very unlikely, and why his days in L.A. are numbered. We'll be right back with you here on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Back right here on Game Time Decisions on this Monday night. We are joined now by The Consig, Dave Showerpan. Consig, how you feeling here on this Monday?
Is that another turtleneck? Oh, my
someone had
goodness. Yes, sir.
Turtleneck Monday.
Looks great.
Turtleneck Monday, people are calling it. Dare to be different.
Like it. People are right. Yeah. Listen, you don't have to tell me. I'm getting away with it and keep getting away with it. I'm going to keep getting away with it. You do the turtleneck, that works.
Yeah.
What are you looking at? What are you looking at for tonight? I mean, did you go deep? Did you go deep? Texas, Rio Grande Valley, McNeese State, or the weeds tonight?
So what we are dealing with, of course, is Mississippi Valley State, the Delta Devils, catching 17.5 pregame. In-game, it's sitting 17.5. Now, this game, unlike the one from 2 games ago, we have covered the entire way thus far. So that's exciting. I did not bet them on Saturday, thanks to Donnie, and I'm glad. Because catching 23.5, they lost by 41. Tonight, they caught 17.5 from a 4-win basketball team. If anybody wanted to know just how terrible, terrible, terrible they are. What are you hearing, Dave, around the college board tonight? A lot of Kansas? A lot of Texas Tech? What are you hearing?
Oh, that steam came on Houston, right? 1.5, 2 hours ago. Something
I'm
like
going to
that.
quickly
And now
step in, Dave, not to cut you off, but just I think you're going to need a reset, and that'll be fine. And then once you do, you'll be great. So we'll just and we'll get that settled. But Dave was alluding to accurately a lot of movement on Houston. Some could be injury related heading into this game. I believe the best shooter for Texas Tech is out, but we're seeing this number. Is this right? As high as 4.5 now. That can't be right. Consig, it looks like you're back into the mix here. Are you seeing 4.5 in some spots for Houston?
On Houston, no, 3.5. My board, it's 3.5 painted pretty much everywhere.
4.5 on MGM.
131.5. Wow, that's crazy.
Phew.
Something's up. Somebody's not playing.
Wow, that's a lot. But here, like the money was coming in and it just got worse. I mean, that is something there, man. That is something. 4.5. All of a sudden, we are now seeing.
I don't know what that means right now. So the late move on the steam, I mean, that's probably the right side. You know, that's the way I read that. I don't know. I really thought. Could you make the case that Houston's the best team in the country after what you saw over the weekend?
I guess no, because you'd be making it in the face of the Duke game, where they beat Illinois by 43. I think Duke's in the mix.
I'm not too sure about Illinois, that's for sure. But
I agree with you on that.
1A, Houston 1A, and who else?
Yeah, you have Houston. So I think the kind of stance that you've heard from Dave and I now, for I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, is not that Duke and Auburn are fraudulent in any capacity. It's just Houston should be mentioned with them more often. And yes. I think tonight is the test. Tonight we'll find out if that's true. Texas Tech's the only. Now, look, Houston is being asked to do a lot, admittedly, right? But I do think Houston, especially if Texas Tech is a little banged up in this game, and I know, and the reports are Chance McMillan is not likely to play. We're waiting to see about Darren Williams within this game, and maybe that's, again, where some of the movement's coming. But if Houston buttons this up here with a four-game run of at Arizona State, home against Iowa State, at Texas Tech, and they go 4-0, you got to start to have that conversation, I think, then. I think, Dave, that's something that, again, both you and I have felt for a little bit here.
If they win tonight, I'd vote them number one. That stretches as hard as any. This line is, like the kids say, very sus. I mean, that's supposed to be favored. It's just 100% supposed to be favored at home.
Yeah.
But you can't because they're going to bet you Houston. They already laid the 1.5. It's up to 3. I can't believe. I thought the game would close closer to pick. When me and Matt did BVB this morning, I said, well, they're going to play Texas Tech. Texas Tech is the side, supposed to be, the sharp guys, the rhombuses, the parallelograms, whatever you want to call them. And obviously they disagreed with the market, and they laid it. The Michigan-Nebraska game's interesting, too. It's another one. I mean, what do you do with that? I like Michigan.
The over.
Matt's like Nebraska. You like the over.
Yeah, 151.5.
Yeah.
It's up 152.5 everywhere, 153 in a spot. Wow. So I already won the bet, right? Isn't that how this works?
I'll send you the CLV. I just found the new CLV can. I took a great picture of it. I posted it yesterday. Yeah,
there you
that
go.
CLV can. That gets you. You know what that gets you? I mean, that gets you a good bet, but it
gets you 33-30 at the end of the first half. Is what it gets you. It gets you. Wow, that's the worst half of shooting we've seen from the Cornhuskers all season.
Oh,
is what it gets you occasionally. I do quite. I'll tell you, within the Big Ten, man. And again, there's no room for additions, I don't think, on my side of it, but it doesn't mean we can't look. That Maryland team's got something, no?
Something.
Huh?
Something's happening. Yeah, something's happening between them and how about Oregon over the weekend with them going to Wisconsin and winning that game. That's a big
nice
win.
It's a nice win. Shout out our guy Joe Lisi, all over it. Shout out Joe Lisi, man. Someone's got it. Someone's got it.
He was excited. He was excited.
Yeah, it's this Terps team's interesting. We'll see. They got Michigan State Wednesday. I think that's one to watch. It's one to watch. By the way, Jokic 7 dimes first quarter against the Pacers, man. 7 of them. All right.
Yes,
so
sir.
that's one way to respond. Also, Jamal Murray has to be flirting with the most threes made in a 4-game stretch in NBA history. We'll be right back with you here on SportsGrid. It's Game Time Decisions.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, Game Time Decisions. We're going to close it out here on this Monday. We've got Dave Sharapan in the mix. Dave's going to be live on In-Game Live coming up very shortly here. Sounds like my mic's going in and out now. So closing in style, as they say, which is interesting. Can you hear me, Dave?
I can hear you.
Maybe I can't hear myself. I don't know what's going on. I think it's just. I think it's in my head. Consig, tell me this, man. Tell me this, man. For the people who said, hey, I'm not victory lapping, I'm just letting you know I was right about the Lakers when they lost to Charlotte. You think they watched the game Saturday against Denver and changed their opinion?
I don't know, but man, oh man, that Luka looked like Luka's supposed to look. Things are looking up. Tomorrow, it's Lakers and Mavs. Oh, baby. 123-100 on Saturday, and Denver never in it. Lucas delivers, I'll say. That was great. Told you, we were talking about this when it happened. Might be time to buy that ticket on them to win the Western Conference. Maybe and or we get an old school Celtics-Lakers throwback series. Wow. I love that stuff. How could that be? But OKC is serious. No joke. OKC laying a big number tonight. They didn't cover yesterday against Minnesota.
Sure didn't.
How are you going to come back and get it tonight? I don't know. NBA, the West is great. The East is trash. I don't know who needs to hear it. The Knicks, I don't know what that was yesterday. They're miles apart apart from the Celtics. And the Cavs are right, miles apart from the Celtics too, but they're miles ahead of the Knicks. It's down to two teams in the East for me. There might be an upset in the first round, but that's it. Celtics and Cavs, Eastern Conference Finals. I'd like to say OKC and Lakers. I mean, chalk. It looks that easy, K-Dub. It really does. I got to throw this back to you, though, before I go. Are you excited that you can play for the Yankees now without having to shave that beard? I mean, are you more excited about that, or they're going to not play that song anymore when they lose?
Whoa, whoa.
No more
the song.
New York after losses. That's it. It's done. No more.
Yeah. I can, admittedly, I don't go to as many games at Yankee Stadium. It's just Bronx isn't as easy to get to. I hadn't really considered they'd play that win or lose.
Yeah.
I don't know if I liked that they got rid of that.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm torn on that. Getting rid of the facial hair, though, was good. It was the most ridiculous thing. Dave, no. I'm what you call a bad Yankee fan to Yankee fans.
Oh.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care about getting under the luxury tax and having a good farm system. That stuff means nothing to me.
No.
I was told by someone I love dearly. Well, come on, it'll help bring prices down at the game. No, you don't go to games. Again, love you. Okay? Two.
Wait.
No, it won't. No, it won't.
Are we talking about your mom? We
dad.
better not be talking. Oh, okay. It was either mom or dad, but if you were talking about your mom right now, we're going to have a problem. Papa Walsh, listen, he's a Yankee fan. Wants to see him win a World Series one more time.
Right. Guess what? Same, which is why for years when I was like, we should get Bryce Harper, and he's like, oh, but all that money. I'm like, are they coming to the house to collect $200 out of the cup? You know, the cup where you keep what's going on here? What are you talking about?
Changed.
But is Bryce going to shave? And then is Bryce going to I hope not. What are we talking about? Hey, how do you feel about one of the 5 best players in baseball on your team? Is he going to shave? That's what we were doing for years, man. That's what we were doing.
No more of that. No more of that.
That's not great. They don't ask that question other places.
They don't ask it anywhere else. No.
That doesn't make much sense. I'm not following that. You know, they once tried to ask me that. They were like, whoa, K-Dub, the mustache, I'm not sure.
Whoa.
And first go round, right? I was like, you know what? All right. And then the second go round, I was like this. Come on, now it looks good. Get used to it. Get excited. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to win a championship, you let OK-Dub do a Game Time Decisions. That's how it gets done.
That's how it gets done.
Also, Timberwolves plus 12.5. We're not too scared of those Oklahoma City Thunder. LaMelo Ball over the 37.5 PRA. Nebraska, Michigan over the 151.5. Root in Oh, they're down. They're down to only 9. I thought it was 19. I thought it was 19. It's Mississippi Valley, man. They might have something. Put them in the tournament. Those 16 games, nobody knows what's going on anyway. Just let them play one of them. Let them catch 45. It'll be glorious. We'll see you tomorrow. In-Game Live is next.